Who is like a modern day Cleopatra?
I don't think we have an equivalent.
I don't think we do, but I do think that there'd be like a dash of Kardashian, a bit of Gwyneth Paltrow, just in this sort of like this. Yeah, I eat bone broth, and that's normal for every meal.
Except for with Cleopatra, it's like, yeah, I murdered my brother. It's self-care.
It's his bones.
His so brother bone broth. It has to be brother bone.
Hello and welcome to Cleopodtra. I'm Christy Vana.
And I'm Lynn Maleh, and this is a podcast about two Middle Eastern queens excavating the funny from the first generation experience.
I'm excited to introduce to you our first guest, Ms. Lynn Maleh herself. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm going to also be a host, but I'm going to try being a guest for a change.
You wear many hats, and I'm proud of you for that.
Thank you.
So this is kind of an origin story podcast. I want to know, I know you're from New Jersey. I know the basics, but would you mind telling me and telling the audience a little bit about, why am I acting like this is a live studio audience? This is like the year's 1993, and I'm just gesturing. It's an infomercial.
This is 2020 now. You're Barbara Walters.
Dial that number at the bottom of your screen.
My parents met through like a vague arrangement. It was not an arranged marriage, but it was basically my dad's family was like, you might like this hot babe. And then my mom's family was like, you might like this average man, as it usually goes. And then they had dinner together, kind of a family dinner. And my dad was like, that's the one I want. And he was going to Paris, I think, in something like 2 weeks to get his PhD in engineering. So he was like, that's the woman I'm bringing with me.
Wow.
She's coming with me. And he went to my dad's dad. I'm going to get this story right. He asked my grandfather for my mom's hand in marriage. And my grandfather famously said to my dad, choosing a wife isn't like choosing a sandwich. More time. And my dad was like, no, I got this.
Like, this is the one I'm taking to Paris.
This is the one that's coming to Paris.
Brie and arugula.
And my mom spoke French fluently because she went to a French Catholic school. And my mom likes to go along for the ride. And she said she always had dreams of France and Paris and what that looked like. So she hopped on board and with 2 weeks notice got married, moved to Paris. My dad got a PhD in engineering, but he barely spoke French and my mom spoke it fluently. So she was like translating his papers for him.
That's pretty great.
Yeah. Classic woman running the show.
Controlling the information.
Yeah. So they lived in Paris. I tried to ask them what living in Paris was like, and all they gave me was that they used to get really good sandwiches.
Wow.
Because Arabs, their entire history is seen through food.
And they picked their sandwiches like they picked their wives.
Exactly, yeah. And they were like, the sandwiches were so great. They have French fries in them. And I'm like, that tells me nothing about Paris in the
2
60s.
weeks.
Yeah, thank you. Great information. And then
that's so something I would do.
I know,
people
right?
Be like, how was it? Where were you on a 9/11? I'm like, I was eating this great sandwich. Let me tell you about this sandwich.
I loved it. So they went to Paris and then they went all over Europe. They went to Oman. They were just trying to settle anywhere they could. They came to America. They had my brother and then, were pushed back to Oman. And then my mom was pregnant with me, and famously, she wanted me to be born in America, so she flew 7 months pregnant, which you're technically not supposed to do. But why did I get away with it?
She was so small. Ding, ding, ding.
I was so tiny.
Pull the balloons.
Yes, I know exactly. So yeah, then they were in America. They had 2 kids. We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment.
Where?
In Summit, New Jersey.
All right.
There was a train track in our backyard. We lived there. My brother, I think, was about 13 when we left it. I was about 7. And then, high school happened. I went to college. Then I came out here. I worked in marketing for 10 years. And then I was like, what am I doing with my life? And one of my coworkers told me that her boyfriend does stand-up comedy. And she was like, do you want to go see his show? And I was like, that sounds really dumb. Yeah, I'll definitely go see that. And then I went and I sat there the whole time and I was like, I can do that.
This was in LA?
Yeah.
Do you remember where the show was?
Hamburger Mary's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Still happening.
It was like my Velma Kelly moment, you know? Like where Renee Zellweger sees like Catherine Zeta-Jones. Those are the characters' names in the hit musical in Chicago. And like she sees her and she's like, she sees herself on stage. It was totally one of those moments. And then I took a silly little class, which I guess a lot of comics look down on.
I'm a theory nerd, so anytime anyone wants to be like, rule of 3, I'll be like, slow down,
like
you
this
know?
is an Arab thing. Like, we will take any class at any time. I love to ace
anything
class.
that gives me more of like a belief that I'm certified to do whatever I'm doing, I'll take.
Anything I can get an A+ in, I will go to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Another comedy friend of mine, Denise Lee, she's up in San Francisco. We joke that we
want
to
be like up in heaven. I was like, oh, Christy Dark.
She's no longer with us. I killed her. She was too good.
Yeah, I mean, we have to.
We joke that we want to be the valedictorians of comedy. We're like, can we get a 4.0 in this? But yeah, I think that there are probably a lot of people who have gone through comedy school not quite learning. It's like something you need to learn by doing.
My class was 4 sessions, and it was exactly what I need. Shout out Judith Shelton. And she just, it was in a children's art space. Like, there were popsicle stick creations all around, which I'm so artsy.
So half of the comedians weren't even legally allowed to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It was all women, so they were. But that's probably why there were no men in the class.
So like, oh, well, we selected ourselves out of this.
Yeah.
Go door to door.
You walk in and she hugs you. I remember I had a moment before I even went into the class.
I'm sorry, back up. She hugs
you? She hugs you. This was pre-COVID when hugging was still acceptable. I called my boyfriend before I got to the class and I was like, I can't do this. I can't perform. Who am I fooling? Like, I don't even want to. I don't want to get in there. And the class, all the girls were so confident. They were all actors and they all had experience doing this kind of stuff. And I'm such a writer. And I was just so nervous. But then I think I'm the only one from the class, me and one other girl who still do stand-up. The other is Jen Jones. I don't know if you know her. Shout out Jen Jones.
Don't think I've met
She's
her.
Lovely. She just moved to New York, so.
So she gave everyone a big hug. That's at the top of the syllabus.
Yeah,
She's like, first I hug each one of you and make prolonged eye contact.
Listen, I loved it, and it was just what I needed. And all of her class was just basically being like, you can do it. Like, it wasn't like theory or structure, which is truly just what I needed.
Yeah.
And then it ended in a class show. And I remember her saying, I love this so much. She was like, this is really rude of me, but the class show I'm going to give you is going to be the best show you do for a really long time. And you're going to think you like stand-up comedy. Right. And then it gets so much worse from here. And she was so right, because the class show, all our friends showed up.
Right.
It was so supportive. It was so fun. I had an amazing set, which I have on camera.
Oh, wow.
Ooh, and it is bad. But she was right. And then after that, I just went to a lot of terrible open mics. Yeah. And she was right. That was the best show I did for a long time.
So you identify more as a writer than a comic?
I've always identified more as a writer than a comic. The performance element still gives me a ton of anxiety. I always think of Julie Andrews, who would take a shot of schnapps before filming Sound of Music. And I kind of want to be a comic who just takes a shot of schnapps.
That's amazing.
Before every set. But what bar has schnapps? Do you think the Hollywood Improv offers dollar schnapps?
Anytime I think of schnapps, I think of that Seinfeld episode where they go to India and they get Elaine drunk and she's like, he schnapped me. That's how you get into the vault, get all the secrets, by getting Elaine drunk. Peach schnapps, peppermint schnapps.
Very embarrassing. I did not grow up on Seinfeld.
Oh, okay. Podcast over. Thank you so much for coming. This has been Cleopodtra.
Canceled? I don't know. Did we ever say this podcast was called Cleopodtra?
All right. That was a good warm up. Yeah. Welcome to Cleopodtra. Do you get it? But do you get it? Do you get it?
I'm not Egyptian.
She's not Egyptian. She's Syrian. I'm Egyptian, but that's good enough.
I'm appropriating. But I did read that Cleopatra also was not Egyptian. Her roots are more Grecian. Mm-hmm. So she was living in a different culture, kind of the way we are living in a different culture than the ones that our families gave to us. So I thought that was pretty cool.
We're going to breadcrumb you throughout this series by explaining why we chose this, why Cleopatra. But for now, why would we be clear at the top?
We'll keep them guessing.
No.
It slowly unfolds.
Absolutely. It's going to
It's
be
like
a
an
who done
onion.
it, but it's going to be why'd they do it?
Why?
Why done it?
Why done it? Beautiful. Oh, okay. The podcast has changed. It's now called Why Done It.
Why done it? I want to know, like, when do you think you actually felt like you knew what you were doing, whether it's comedy or writing or...
I mean, to be honest, I think some days I feel like the #1 comic and writer in the entire universe and that I've accomplished more than anyone's ever accomplished. And some days I just feel like an ant crawling across my laptop. I'm always, do you ever have the bugs crawling across your laptop and you're like, write something funny, ant?
You can carry so much of your body weight. Now just push all your force onto the space bar.
It should be beautiful and funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it really waffles. I mean, I now work in television. I feel like that was a big transformative experience where that was the moment I finally decided that this is what I do. This is my career. This isn't just something I'm doing for fun. Because when I started stand-up, in my head, it was something I was going to do for fun. It was never this was going to be my career. And then it really snowballed in ways I could never have expected, which leads me to believe it's what I'm supposed to do. Because I think when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, it happens. But when I was in marketing, I always just felt like I was in the wrong place. I didn't fit in. I was a bad employee.
Okay, so have you always been big picture?
I think so. I think I've just always been so highly creative. I remember as a kid, my teacher told my mom that my pencil moved faster than my brain or something, which looking back, that teacher just wanted to be a poet so badly.
Pencil moves faster than her brain.
Yeah, and I think it was their way of saying I was almost too creative.
That you had terrible penmanship.
Yeah, I think so. But something like my ideas were like so out there. I think what they were trying to say is that I was the child of immigrant and the immigrants and my thoughts didn't align with whatever strange white thoughts everyone else in my class was having. Maybe. I love to turn everything into a discussion about how I was racially profiled as a child, but
did you feel different growing up in New Jersey?
I did. I really struggled. I grew up in a super whitewashed town, just very waspy. It was a very wealthy town. It was a huge wealth disparity in this town because it was about 30 minutes from New York City. So you literally have like Wall Street people.
Right.
But then also, I always say my high school was the kind of school where there were people whose moms were other students, like house cleaners, that kind of disparity. So I was obviously on the lower income kind of bracket, and you were just treated differently in the town I grew up in. Now I still go back and I feel like I have all these issues with needing to seem like I have a certain amount, and I care about like appearances in a way, and I still go back and I feel like I'm never gonna cut it here. Nothing will ever make me okay in this weird white Pleasantville that is anything but pleasant. And I don't know how my parents just stick it out there, but they never were able to make friends in my hometown, and it's like all the moms were at PTA, but my mom was working, and everyone had a church they went to, but my family's Muslim. So my parents have accents, and I can see it. Do you see it? Like when white people like talk to, like, it's like they stop listening or something, or they like treat them like they're different. Yeah. And I can see it. One time somebody thought my dad was valet, and I was just like,
Are you kidding me?
I mean,
wow.
America.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I got mad when somebody was like, ma'am, we'll have the check, please. Like when I got up to go to the bathroom, and I was like, I'm giving like big waitress energy right now, I guess. Like, But no, you're right. I didn't even think about the racial aspect. It was a white guy who was asking me, like, we'll get the check. And I was like, cool, go get the fucking check. What did your dad do?
My dad thought it was so funny. It's so funny. Sometimes I see
He should have just taken the keys and been like, bye-bye. Salam alaikum. It's my car now. He gave it to me.
Exactly. No, he thought it was hilarious. It's so funny how, like, sometimes I don't even think they notice when people are treating them weirdly.
It's hard to explain to somebody. It's hard to explain to, like, our parents' generation what a microaggression is.
Absolutely. But sometimes I hear, like, the way they talk about other ethnicities, and I'm like, you know, you're first generation, right? Like, you know, this is also like,
what better way to assimilate than to shit on other minorities that are not you, or to pretend like you're other or they're other. Yeah. So okay, so then you felt like that. Were there other, like, Syrians? I feel like Jersey has, like, a lot of Arabs.
Not in the town I'm from. There is an Edison, I believe. No, Edison is the Indian population. Patterson is a very big Arab population, and we go there to buy our pita bread, our falafel, our levne, our hummus. Like, that's where you go to get the good stuff.
Where they're like, we're going to Batterson to get
to get
say less, the
muhammara, of course,
super
the good muhammara. Ooh, yeah. Sometimes my mom, she always says, she's like, maybe your brother and you would have had an easier time if we raised you in Patterson. Maybe we all would have had an easier time. But then sometimes I wonder if maybe not being in Patterson is what shaped me and made me interesting. And maybe if I lived in Patterson, I would have an Arab doctor husband now, which honestly sounds like a good thing. It was all I didn't want as a child, but now sounds...
which honestly, goddamn.
I know.
That's funny. Did you have, like, any kind of otherwise, like, community? Would you guys go to a mosque? Or
we didn't. So my mom is super religious, and then my dad's kind of an atheist. My dad's super Syria rebel. The reason they left is my dad does not like the Middle East. He's hard.
So that's why he fit in so well in Jersey, where he's like, yeah, these crazy 9/11s, get out of my place.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, no, I'm from Costa Rica.
Did your family do this? Right after 9/11, my parents put up the biggest American flag.
Oh, my mom was like, we need to get an American flag. And I was like, Mom, we don't need to get an American flag.
This is like so much more. It's like living on normal street.
I mean, it was for sure real. I mean, I remember, like, some people in our church community, one person was shot at, like, a gas station post 9/11, and I remember the reverberations, and I was like, Mom, you know that everyone thinks I'm Mexican. It's going to be fine.
That's when I became Italian. Stand-up was my coming out. I remember when I started, I was like, my whole thing is not that I'm going to be ethnic. I don't want to be pigeonholed as ethnic. And now my whole thing is that I run the Arab show at the Hollywood Improv, and I have a Cleopodtra. No, now it's so important to me to amplify it because I hid it for so long. It's kind of my coming out journey, I guess.
Have you gone to Syria?
I have, which is where I got this bike print that is sitting behind you. I went when I was about 10, and we went in the summer, so I packed nothing but, like, tiny little shorts, and that is when I realized that men are disgusting. At age 10 in Syria.
Discovered misogyny at 10.
Absolutely, walking through the, Medinas.
Oh, God.
Listen, they were creepy here, too.
Right.
I've never been hit on more than when I was walking home from middle school. Truly. It was...
It's horrible.
Isn't that so disgusting? And now in my 30s, like, no one says anything to me.
Would that I were that middle school girl. No.
No, I truly love that I've aged out of creeps.
How did you feel going back to Syria?
Back then, that was in my deep. I hated being
different
Syrian vibes. So I remember I didn't want to go. Also, as a child, I just didn't like travel. It's really hard on your body. I remember we flew from... New Jersey.
It's very hard on my tween body.
It's hard. I remember we flew from New Jersey to Amsterdam to Jordan. We got to the Jordan airport, and I just puked everywhere. Oh, no. It's a lot of travel, and I was so small. I don't know if you forgot, so small. And Yeah, we got to Syria and I was just so unenthusiastic about it. But it was cool because my whole life I grew up, my mom's family lives in New Jersey too, which is why we're there. So I've known my mom's family, but my mom's family is they're like money Arabs. You know, money Arabs.
Oh yeah.
They like money. They like displays of wealth. They like to show off. And I never quite fit in with my mom's family. And then I went to Syria and I got to meet my dad's family, and they're kind of artsier, and there are a lot of professors and teachers, and one teaches literature. Another, I think, taught drama for a while and now is a translator for the UN. So they also look more like me. So I just felt like I kind of found my family when I never felt like I had my family here in New Jersey. And they were younger, and there were a lot more women cousins in this side of the family than the other side of the family. So I was able to really connect with them. And I know one of our questions about Cleopatra is that she was notoriously a daddy's girl. And so we were going to ask future guests if they're like a mini mom or a mini dad, and I'm definitely a mini dad.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I think
I think it's pretty often the opposite gender, right?
I don't know. I would wonder if they've done studies like that. Like,
yeah.
But
and then the weird thing is my boyfriend is like my mini mom.
say more.
Because my dad is super sloppy, detail disoriented like me, and he just has like quick fixes, and he's like kind of a creative, he doesn't do art, but he's just kind of creative in his weird little ways. Like my mom sent me a photo of him during the last snowstorm in New Jersey, and he was shoveling the snow into like a little Mount Rushmore, and I was like, is my dad funny? It wasn't like well done, but it was very funny. And then my mom is very detail oriented, and she's such a perfectionist. Like the way she loads the dishwasher, everything's like perfect. Everything she does is so perfect, but to the point that it causes her so much stress. Like she recently retired, and then she was taking on small projects. Eventually she had to stop doing them because she can't do a job without giving it her entire soul. And I was like, Mom, you don't even need this job. Like just quiet quit. Like everyone, like I invented quiet quitting. When that came out, I was like, I've been doing this for years.
It's bare minimum all the way. I've never, it took me a long time to like figure out how to be okay with not giving 110%.
My mom has hard Virgo energy. And my dad also always is like going to new job. He's always like project to project to project. He loves to interview. He loves to like switch things up. And then my mom worked at the same company her entire life, and she loves everything to be the same forever. And it's like we're the exact same dynamic. It's a little eerie.
What do your parents think of your creative career? What did you major in?
I was a double major in theater and creative writing.
Okay.
And so 2 fake majors.
Did you?
So spaghetti and aliens.
Which are both very real.
And
see
important.
The news.
That's true.
Did they opine on your major or anything after that? Or were they just kind of like laissez-faire about it?
Told me several times that these were interesting choices I was making. But I think they kind of knew that I was pretty resilient and would find my way. And I think they kind of understood that college majors are not the be-all, end-all. My mom majored in pharmacy, and then she worked as in accounting, basically. So budgets and that sort of thing. So I think they knew that I wouldn't be glued to that. I think they still worry about me. Like, I don't think they understand that the writer's strike is real. And I don't think they understand. They keep being like, can you be a full-time writer on a show? And I don't know how to tell them that that's just not how it works. You work project to project.
Right.
And as a TV writer, sometimes you're just out of work for long periods of time. But I think they just have a really hard time
wrapping
understand, because they love government jobs, they love stability, which who doesn't love those things? I would love to be a full-time writer, but
I would love to write for a government television show. Have you looked into PBS, Lynn?
You know what, Sesame Street would be very fun to work on. So wait,
yeah.
have we just found the answer to appeasing my parents while being a TV writer at the same time? The pod works.
Are there any Middle Eastern Muppets?
Muppets and Sesame Street are not the same thing, but I
you're right.
appreciate you for not really knowing the difference, because
But they're puppets.
Yeah,
they're
they're all the same.
Sesame Street has nothing to do with Jim Henson.
This is going to be our most controversial clip.
Oh no, Sesame Street has nothing to do with Jim Henson.
People are going to lose their minds.
I mean, I know what the Muppets are, and Sesame Street is totally different.
Yes.
Okay. Wow, which came first?
Do you think I know that much?
Wow, well, 25 seconds ago, you seemed pretty well versed in the distinctions.
All I know is the first Arab puppet is going to be Mohammed Muppet. Mohuppet. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Mohuppet? I don't know. I don't
You
think
loved
that
it?
I don't think
You
that
loved
it
it.
doesn't. It just falls right off the tongue.
Actually, I think... Who's the comedian? I really should know his name, and you definitely will. Who does the puppets, the like racist
Randy
puppets?
Feltface?
No. Jeff? Don't know.
Edit this out.
But he does puppets, and one of his was like a racist terrorist puppet. He's huge in Vegas. I think he's like one of the highest paid comedians.
Wow, if only we thought of terrorist puppets first.
You know, there really is a market. The world
I was too busy American flag shopping to think of that.
I did work on a puppet TV show, so maybe I should have some bigger puppet knowledge than this.
I knew that they were different, and I guess I just assumed at some point there was some sort of convergence. I don't know.
They should have a crossover episode like Angel and Puffy.
Oh, right.
Has that been done?
I don't know.
Okay, $1 million
Let's make it
idea.
happen. What's the weird? Do you remember the crossover when Urkel came to the Full House?
Yes, epic.
That was nuts. I can't believe crossover episodes existed.
I want to make it clear, when that episode came out, I was 1 year old because I'm 19. So I don't actually remember that reference.
Okay, duly noted. The record will so reflect.
Both hosts on this show are 19 years old.
Wait, but do you think we'll ever get another crossover?
What do you think would be like an awesome crossover right now?
I was really into Succession.
People loved that. I watched the pilot and it made me, but I need to go back.
Conceptually, and Just Like That and Succession.
Oh my gosh.
Kendall and Samantha date each other.
I was going to say maybe with like White Lotus, because they have very similar themes. That could be like a crossover.
Well, I guess we'll put a pin in this. We'll think of crossover episodes. Maybe that'll be like a good question to ask future guests. Like, if your like life were a crossover episode of 2 television shows, what would it be?
Ooh, or audience, put in the comments what you think would be a good crossover TV show.
Okay. I want to pivot, if that's cool.
I love it.
One of our questions. So, Cleopatra famously viewed herself as a living goddess. Can you tell us about a time where you felt supernatural or goddess-like?
Okay. I'm so excited for this story because this is the biggest moment of my life. And it relates back to sandwiches. So,
what doesn't, pray tell?
So, I was at Astro Family Diner. Have you been?
Yes.
One of my favorite diners in LA, recommendation. And I was there with, shout out Grafstein. We were there with a bunch of comedians, and he was looking at the menu, and he looks at me, and he goes, Lynn, what do you think's on the old-fashioned sandwich without looking? And I go, I don't know, Jake, turkey and ham. And he goes, yeah.
Wow.
And then he goes, what else is on it? And I was like, I don't know, like Swiss cheese. And he was like, no, that's also on it. And he was like, but what else? And then I'm like in the zone, you know? And I'm like, coleslaw? Yes.
What?
Yes. Thousand Island dressing? Yes. And then he was like, what's it on? And I was like, rye bread. And he was like, how is the bread? And I was like, grilled. And then
it said grilled bread,
yeah,
not toasted.
Yep. And I got every single detail of it, like in order of how it was laid out. It was
Wait, you've been there before, so you'd seen it.
I had never been there before.
Oh.
It was my first time. I'm a diner queen because I'm from New Jersey. Yeah.
Wow.
Diners are in my blood.
That's pretty impressive.
It was really...
I never would have guessed turkey ham coleslaw.
Right?
I think once you get to coleslaw and Thousand Island, rye follows.
Yeah.
Because those three are grouped.
Predicting diner menu sandwiches might be my superpower.
Good. And the good thing is that it's so marketable. Such a marketable skill.
You use it all the time.
Okay, Cleo and Mark Anthony would wander the streets of Alexandria in disguise and play pranks on the very innocent,
It's so
underserved.
rude.
It really is like the ultimate, like, oh, we know we could do, we just play with the peasants like they're Barbies, you know, and that's bizarre, but they would play pranks. Do you have any pranks that you've played successfully?
I want to make it clear, just based on that question alone, Cleopatra was not a great person.
No, not the best.
No.
Not somebody I'd invite to my wedding. I will say, though, I do respect all of the terrible things about her because she's still this, like, historical figure and
a woman.
And a woman, exactly.
Like, how often do you hear about women committing war crimes? You know, more women in war crimes.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
what we're always saying.
Si se puede.
Yeah, exactly. You're leaning in.
All right, back to pranks.
Okay, so this actually is also Cleopatra themed. So my college, Emerson College, they owned a castle in the Netherlands.
Wait, they just bought a castle for no reason?
Yeah, well, they bought it to do an abroad program there. And so every semester...
Study abroad and just the whole thing is confined to the castle?
Yes. So it's in this castle in nowhere, Netherlands, this tiny, tiny little town. And they send 80 rowdy art college kids. All these kids are just there to, you know, go wild in this picturesque little like town where everyone has upright bikes and there's just two tiny little like bars.
Wait, what's an upright bike?
They're bikes they're just bikes that you sit. They're usually called Dutch bikes where you sit upright on them because everything's so flat in the Netherlands. You don't need like sporty bikes like you need in hilly places. Wow. I weirdly know a lot about bikes. A different episode.
A different podcast.
A different episode. I dated a lot of guys who ride bikes. Are you surprised?
I
love a hipster.
Not a bit.
I love a hipster. So they send all these kids to this castle in the Netherlands in this little town. And since there's just 80 people and we're all in this castle all the time, I realized that you could start rumors really fast. And I was obviously bored. So one day, me and my friend, we went to the computer lab. We were like, did anyone hear about room checks? Yeah, they're going to check your room for alcohol and weed. Room checks? Room checks. We thought we were being like really obvious about starting a fake rumor. And then later we were walking just around the little town and we saw these people just off the grounds of the castle and they were just drinking a ton and they were like in a puff of marijuana smoke. And we were like, what are you guys doing out here? And they were like, did you hear about the room checks? Wow. And we were like, oh, we started that. I also started a rumor that I did so much cocaine, and I had never touched cocaine in my life. I started a rumor that I did so much cocaine, I got kicked out of the honors program. Why did I start a rumor about myself?
I don't know. That's so weird.
At the end of the semester, some guy was like, oh, I thought that was true, and I really judged you for it. And I was like, okay, dude.
I did not know you lived in a castle. That's kind of amazing.
Yeah, it was great.
I have another follow-up question about Cleopatra.
Okay, great.
She obviously loved luxury. What is one bougie thing that you never skimp out on?
Okay, the one thing that I feel like you always have to go high end on is wine.
Okay.
Because
really?
Yes, I think you got to get nice wine because A, the sulfites is what give you headaches. Do not ever drink the wine at a comedy club. That will destroy you, or at least me, because I feel like my tolerance for alcohol is so low.
It will destroy me.
Me personally, because I think my like Muslim ancestors are punishing me whenever I drink, so my tolerance is like so low. So I always think like spring for the organic wine. It's going to be better. And I'm a little bit of a wine snob. All of my girlfriends have a favorite video that someone took of me when we were all like kind of messy at like a wine tasting.
I wish I knew you were a wine snob before I gave you a random bottle of wine for your birthday.
You know, I probably still drank it and liked it just fine. Probably liked it.
How did I not know
just
that about you? I'm
fine.
like, Bogle, ooh la la, Trader Joe, mwah.
Trader Joe's does not have a terrible selection.
No, I love Trader Joe's. I like it all. I like all types of wine. I think cheap to not cheap. That's
it's not necessarily cheap versus expensive. It's more like good versus
quality.
bad. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So continue. There's a video of you doing
video
what?
of me a little messy, and like we're trying all these wines, and I'm like, that one's fine, that one's okay, the rest are terrible. And they do that impression of me all the time. The rest are terrible.
The rest are terrible.
Yeah. That was my white woman on a vineyard moment.
Who is like a modern day Cleopatra, do we feel?
I don't think we have an equivalent.
I don't think we do, but I do think that there'd be like a dash of Kardashian, a bit of Gwyneth Paltrow, just in this sort of like this. Yeah, I eat bone broth, and that's normal for every meal.
Except for with Cleopatra, it's like, yeah, I murdered my brother. It's self-care.
It's his bones.
His
so brother bone broth.
It has to be brother bone.
Brother bone broth is the most nourishing, actually.
30 minutes of brother bone broth. It is hard to say.
Brother bone broth. That's actually going to be a good thing. We're going to say that like red leather, yellow leather.
Yeah, one of those like tongue twisters, like theater school style. Sometimes I consider using like my theater degree and doing some like vocal warm-ups before stand-up, and then I think, no, Lynn, love yourself.
Wait, so your theater degree?
Sure.
Wait, so like, is there any overlap with that and stand-up? Like, certainly there has to be some like something you got performance-wise from that.
My theater
it just
degree...
hit me like it really. I know you said this 45 minutes ago, but it just hit me when you were like, "Yeah, performance is still my worst nightmare," and I was like, "You had a theater degree."
I think I got into because I was in drama club in high school, and I think I got into it just because the drama club was misfits and artsy people, and you could be weird and look different, and it was okay. So I think that's how I just stumbled into it, and I liked the art of it, and I did dance growing up, so in the musicals I'd often be, you know, like the highlighted dancer or something, and I just loved the culture of it. Everyone was so weird. It was the first time I felt like I belonged is when I joined, and I joined I think in about 8th grade, and I felt like I just didn't have a tribe, and then I joined, and then that became so much of my identity that I was like, oh, I'm going to school for theater, and then I got to theater school, and I was like, oh, but I hate acting. Small detail. I like theater.
How'd you navigate 4 years of that?
I think because I would be like the dancer, or I'd be the comedic relief a lot. And also the only reason I got into like a pretty prestigious acting program is because I'm really good at monologues. That was always like my best thing. I was so good at monologues. So I could get into things that I didn't belong in. And then they'd be like, do a scene. And I'd be like, they'd be like, be a character. And I'd be like, no.
Do you want better? No.
But I will do a monologue. So I feel like stand-up is just kind of similar to a monologue. But it's like you get to write it. And I'm such a writer that it's like the perfect performance.
I have to shoehorn this. Cleopatra.
Great transition.
So she was, as we know, she was Greek, but she loved Egypt and was embracing a lot of their customs. Any particular customs you embrace from, if not America, maybe Paris?
I would say my American thing, and this is inspired by my mom, when I love power clashing, and I'll always wear I'll wear like floral with like paisley, and I'll like go out to my mom and be like, Mom, do these match? And she always says, it's my mom's line, this is America, everything matches. Their house looks crazy, if you're wondering.
Their house looks crazy.
The furniture is a lot.
Yeah.
Because they're big garage sale heads, so our entire house is furnished with garage sale furniture, and it's all so mismatching, but then it kind of works.
I kind of love
you
that.
know, kind of like, I feel like the way I dress tends to be kind of mismatching, but it kind of works. But in America, everything matches.
I love that.
I love it.
That's that
Words
should
to
be
live
embroidered.
by.
Yeah, embroidered on a pillow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we went through like the questions that I
Cool.
wanted to ask you. Is there any other closing statements, Your Honor?
Wow.
I'd like to reserve 3 minutes for rebuttal.
Love when Christy's lawyer side comes out. It's not scary at all. Closing arguments. I think I'm just excited to interview you and see if I can carry a conversation as well as you did. I'm so impressed.
Oh my goodness, I'm impressed with you. This was a very phenomenal inaugural episode. I hope anyone who watched this, you know, just pat yourself on the back. Thank you so much for
getting through it.
For getting through this.
For fueling our
You know,
need
just
for
some
attention.
jagged edges we're still filing down.
Yeah. We should end this by having like a large shower curtain and then we just...
Well, I think we can hire people to carry us off.
Oh, yeah,
like
like
Cleopatra would
style.
be. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And there's these.
Oh, yeah. How have we not? Oh, yes. Let's fan our guests. I love it.
All right. Well, this has been Cleopodtra.
Like and subscribe and follow us at Cleopodtra.
We're just getting this off the ground, and we really appreciate you. A lot of good guests coming up with interesting backstories that we can't wait to dig into.
Love you, Cleos.
Bye.